Hello again and welcome to another edition of Newsmaker of the Week. I'm Leon Warden and I'm pleased to welcome this week's Newsmaker, the director of the Gibbon Conservation Center in Saugus, Alan Mootnick.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us. And you know, you've got a little bit of publicity over the years, but not too much. I bet a lot of people would be surprised to find out what you do in Saugus. What is the Gibbon Conservation Center?
We house the largest group of gibbons in the Western Hemisphere. They're small apes, and we house all 4 genera at that location.
What's a genera?
Well, there's subspecies, and then species level, and then subgenus and genus level. And there's 4 genera of gibbon.
Okay.
We're the only place in the world that house all 4 genera.
Really?
So it's great for study, educational purposes, and it's a very good opportunity for us there.
I don't remember my high school biology too well. There's a genera, but then how many species are there?
There's 13 species of gibbon, and we house 6 of the 13 species.
Where do they live in the wild?
They're found in Southeast and South Asia in the rainforest.
So we're talking China and...
Yes, all the way from southern China to Indonesia.
Okay.
And as far to the left as Bangladesh, Northeast India, and Vietnam.
I think jungle, Saugus isn't exactly jungle. How does Saugus work in terms of a climate for these things?
It's not quite the perfect location.
Okay.
So what we try to do is add additional oils to their diet, and it really helps them out a lot.
Really?
Yes.
Now, which came first, you in Saugus, or you know, and you got into the saving gibbons later, or you know, or did you already run a gibbon conservation effort and you landed in Saugus afterward?
I landed in Saugus afterwards. I was in Chatsworth before.
Oh, okay.
So I've only been here 24 years.
Only 24 years.
Yes.
Getting to be an old timer here in town.
Yes.
So you're literally bringing these things back from the brink of extinction. Are these on the endangered list?
All gibbons are endangered, and some are more than others. The 2 rarest primates in the wild are gibbons. And we house 1 species that's down to 2,000 left in the wild.
Really?
And the only breeding in the United States is at our facility.
Really?
Yes.
So you're doing something fairly unique. I mean, how many other places are there in the United States that do what you do with gibbons?
We are the only one.
Oh, okay. Have you had a lot of babies there over the years?
We've produced the most offspring of any place in the world in captivity.
What are the specific types of gibbons that you have there? I mean, could you describe them for us?
Which species? We have the Javan gibbon, which is from Java. It's a light grade gibbon. They're down to 2,000 left in the wild.
Okay.
And there's only 4 breeding pairs in captivity in the whole world.
How many babies have you had? Have they had?
6 at our location.
What else?
Well, we have pileated gibbons, and there are around 30,000 left in the wild.
I'm sorry, what are they called?
Pileated, which means capped. So the females are light buff color, the males are black. And they are only about 11 breeding pairs in captivity in the world. And so we have the only breeding pair at this time in the Western Hemisphere.
Really?
Yes.
And that's 2. What are the other 2?
Well, we got 4 more species, and that would be, we have agile gibbons, and those are doing fairly well in the wild, even though they come from an area where there's a lot of deforestation in Sumatra. And we have a breeding pair and offspring. And we have the siamang, which is doing a lot better in the wild, but again, comes from Sumatra where there's a lot of deforestation. But they're very unique species. That's in a different genus. And they're the loudest of all land mammals. Well,
loudest, you said the word there. You know, we took a camera out to your place recently and got to listen to these gibbons singing. And I think we have some tape and we can hear what they sounded like.
Sounds great.
Well, Mama looked pretty upset there. I assume that was Mama.
Yes, she wasn't upset though.
No? What was she talking about?
It's a territorial call. Gibbons need about 50 to 200 acres in order for their family to survive because they mainly eat fruit. So they patrol the area early in the morning, announcing to the neighbors, don't enter this area.
Oh,
So they do it every morning.
Saying, I'm here, keep out.
Yes, exactly.
Now, what about those other ones, the pileated that you
Yes.
said they were? It sounded like they were singing, they reached a point where they were singing in unison.
Yes, the daughter was singing with her mother at that time.
How do they do that?
You know what's really interesting about that one? The lower jaw, the mandible, relaxes so much, it starts floating. So that's how you get that bubbling sound in your voice.
It sounded like they were saying something different from what the other one said.
Each species has its own territorial call, and females sound different than the males.
So that's not a matter of I'm hungry versus I'm mad.
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And it's good for the family to, duet or sing together.
Now I noticed in that clip of video there, you had some apes that looked kind of I don't know, a buff color,
Yes.
in with some that looked black. What's the story there?
That's sexual dichromatism. On those particular species, males are dark and females are light, and they're born light. And then some species, they turn dark and then go back to light, and then some species, they go from light to dark.
Really?
Yes, so it's quite complicated.
In some, they're all gray.
Exactly, and don't change color.
Now, do the males live longer? Do females live longer?
Good question. Just like in humans, right?
Yeah.
Who's more stressed out? I think about the same.
Well, you say just like humans, but that makes me wonder, how old are the males and the females when they breed?
In captivity, they're capable of reproducing as early as 5 or 6 years of age. And in the wild, they'll stay with their parents for a longer period of time because it's difficult for them to find their own territory because they're not strong enough to defend it. So in the wild, the females would stay with their parents until 8.5 years of age, and males around 10.
How long do they live, and how long can they breed?
They could start breeding, let's say, around 6 in the wild. Let's say they're going to wait till, let's say, 9 or 10 years of age. There's a female, they're not sure of her age. They've been studying for 26 years in Thailand in the forest, and she's probably around 36 or 7 that they're definitely aware of, and she's had 6 different mates.
Really?
Yeah, but she is not post-reproductive. The oldest living gibbon in captivity will be 58 in January.
How old is your oldest?
31.
31.
And his cage mate, who he adores, is 9.
Now you say that one had 6 different mates. Are they polygamous?
They're serial monogamists, like people.
Okay.
So they...
One at a time. There can be more than one, but only one at a time.
And still visit the neighbors when the spouse isn't looking to.
And you had a number of different cages out there. These are all separate and distinct families, or are you just keeping species together?
Both. Because they're territorial, they don't like their neighbors, so it's important to keep them away from them. And you have to put visual barriers up from each other. But also, too, for the bloodlines, it's important to keep them together.
Why is that?
If there's just only a few breeding pairs left in captivity, it's important that you know who's the father.
So they could crossbreed among species?
Yes, that's true. And this is very interesting, too, because I feel the term species isn't really a good term that will have to be changed eventually, because tigers and lions can reproduce and have fertile offspring. And those are definitely distinct species.
Kind of like a horse and an ass.
Yes, but those aren't fertile offspring.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you? Oh, does the father ever help with the rearing of the young?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the siamungs, the father participates more than the other species. There is sexual dimorphism in that species, so the males are a little larger, so it's a little heavier for the female to carry. But in the wild, the female's the one who leads the family, and if she's going to have to go fast enough through the forest canopy, having that extra weight is harder on her. So around 6 months of age, the father will start to help carry the offspring.
So when we see the babies clinging to the parent in this video, is it typically the mama that the baby's clinging to? Or?
Yes, yes.
Okay. How do you keep from, inbreeding? I mean, where do your different gibbons come from?
What we always try to do, I have a great database, and I'm the stud bookkeeper for 6 species in North America.
Really?
And so I trade around the world. So we just sent to England a pileated female. In exchange, we received a male from our female that we received from Zurich, and we traded a male for her. And so the Javan gibbon that we have is going to be, who's now 6, will be 7 in January, will be going to England, and in exchange, we'll be receiving a female for our 31-year-old male, another one.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like something that a lot of zoos do with, when they try to do captive breeding of different species. Are you a zoo? Do you belong to like zoological societies and things like that?
Yes, we are. We're a member of the American Zoological Association.
How does one become the stud bookkeeper for 6 different species? I mean, what's your educational background? How does somebody get to do what you do?
I learned everything from the gibbons in museums and talking to people and a lot of reading. We have one of the largest libraries in the world on gibbons.
And you've done lecturing around the world, haven't you?
Exactly. I spend 1 to 2 months a year in Asia assisting the zoos and rescue centers with better care of their animals and species identification.
How well do the zoos, and they have zoos in Thailand, for instance?
Oh, yes, definitely.
How are they how do they stack up compared to an American zoo or a European zoo?
I guess in every country, in America, Europe, or in Asia, you have good zoos and bad zoos. And in some countries, they have very good zoos and some not so much. But in Thailand, there's 5 major zoos there. One zoo is 2,000 acres, and 2 other ones are 500 acres. And so they have some really nice exhibits. And they're very interested in improving if ever they can. And we were just entertaining 2 zoo directors and a general curator from Thailand a few weeks ago.
So are they really committed to preserving the species? Because I think of places in Southeast Asia, and I think that they have the humans tend to have a diet that's a little more varied than ours might be, and I'm thinking maybe humans are a threat to the apes.
In each country, it would vary, but in some countries it's real bad. In Thailand, it's not a problem, but in some other countries, it's very bad. They could use a gibbon for medicinal purposes, or the radius bone would be used for chopsticks in some countries. In some countries, they're eaten. In some countries, somebody can achieve their manhood by taking the spirit of a gibbon by eating the gibbon.
Really?
So each country you have something to contend with. And it's interesting for me to be going into those countries to educate, because it's difficult to say, I know a lot more than the people who work here, and please listen to me, and not them anymore.
Yeah.
So I publish a lot of papers in scientific journals, and then I give them a workshop, and it seems to be working out well.
And besides humans, I mean, what are the natural predators, natural threats?
Besides humans would be leopards, who can climb trees, and pythons as well, who could easily swallow a gibbon whole. The young could be in threat with the large eagles. And then if there was a deforest area, if a gibbon came to the ground, which they rarely do, even for water, they would rarely come to the ground, would be a tiger.
We hear about, Brazilian deforestation. Is there deforestation going on in Southeast Asia also?
It's real bad there too, yes.
From construction or from?
For various reasons, unfortunate controlled fires that are set on purpose. In Borneo, they have a canal that goes all the way across, which dried up the forest and caused a lot of forest fires. And they're now trying to get a consortium to get that blocked so that the water can now go all the way down. Unfortunately, the palm oil plantations and everybody's interested in palm oil for their products is taking over a lot of the forest area. So it'd be great if we weren't using palm oil products. So everybody's interested in that. But the hardwood forests, people are interested in that as well in many countries. So everybody seems to have a part in the problem.
Is this something that just people interested specifically in gibbons are working on? I mean, basically, are you guys on your own in terms of saving gibbons, or is there a network that, is there some organization, an umbrella organization, some big organization, maybe a branch of the United Nations or something that's involved in species protection on a bigger scale that you work with?
There are some organizations that's working, let's say in Indonesia, called the Gibbon Foundation, and their main purpose is saving all fauna and flora. And then they do give some grants out to various individuals for working over there. But I am really the main person going to Asia to assist over there with all gibbons.
Really?
For captive management reasons.
You know, you mentioned that one species, there's only like 2,000 in the wild. Is the population diminishing? Has it been, you know, arrested, and is it growing in the wild, or is it captive breeding that's going to bring it back?
It's very interesting, that problem. That's in Java. It's the most heavily populated island in the world, so it's already got its problem right there. The forests are fragmented, so there's almost like islands within an island. They're not even connected, the forests.
Really?
So some of these gibbons are just landlocked. There's one area was a small area was just one gibbon. And they live in trees that are as high as 200 feet high, so it would be very difficult to obtain that animal to transfer to another area. So they have a big problem in that respect as well.
Yeah. You know, what are the rules in the United States or here in California in terms of owning gibbons? I mean, what do you have to do to be able to own them? And can I own a gibbon?
No, it would be very difficult. California is one of the more strict areas. In fact, California is the only one in the United States that has its own quarantine just for primates entering this area. And if you were to bring one in from out of the country, it has to go into quarantine as well. There's only 28 quarantines in the United States. So there's a lot of rules you would need. If you wanted a gibbon or a primate, you would need to have at least 2 years experience, proper enclosures, and knowledge. But gibbons are endangered, so there is nobody who has any available, so it'd be difficult to get one.
I mean, is there somebody that sanctions you or something, or governmentally allows you to, you know, maintain gibbons?
Public health and USDA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, have permits with that.
Do you ever run into situations where, I don't know, maybe somebody's smuggled in one of these apes into the country and they're caught and the ape is taken away from them, and, you know, do you rescue, quote unquote?
Yes, because I'm in Los Angeles and because there's an international airport, we have helped our government. In fact, there was one situation where somebody smuggled 2 pygmy loris in their pants, let's say 2 or 3 years ago. Person was arrested, and the primates ended up with me until they went through a quarantine period, and they were given to the Los Angeles Zoo after that.
Do you have threats here? You know, are there threats to your own population here? I mean, I'm thinking of the fires that we had, you know, the last couple of years up OK Canyon. You know, how did you fare through that?
It's very fortunate. Luckily, we have somebody who donates his time and helps with cutting the weeds down for us. So I even cut the weeds down for the neighbors as well. So we have a nice fire break as well, and we trim all the trees up, and we have a lot of volunteers who come by to help trim up everything. But yeah, we had a couple just right across the street. Some were just 10 minutes away. And so...
And you're right next to Lombardi. I mean, I'm thinking that, you know, probably a lot of people out here went to Lombardi's for pumpkins for Halloween, drove right by your place and didn't even know it.
Yeah, the only way you would know about it is if you heard the gibbons singing.
Yeah. But what about, you know, I don't know, are there diseases like valley fever or, you know, West Nile virus or something out here that impacts you? Something here, you know, that isn't in Southeast Asia, for instance?
Yeah, valley fever, so we have to control the ground squirrel population. And we were very fortunate that we had a predator living on our property recently. So I was very thrilled that a bobcat took up residency.
Oh, yeah?
Had 3 kittens there. So she was keeping the population down.
And keep the gates closed, I would imagine bobcat be a threat to your gibbons.
No, she's fine. She's small enough. A cougar would be a problem.
Okay.
And so it worked out good.
How many people help you out there?
We have one person who's a staff person, and then we have resident volunteers, so maybe 3 or 4 people a day.
Yeah.
We feed the gibbons 8 times a day, 15 different types of food, so
Really?
it's constant care.
And what do they eat?
Fruits and vegetables, a little bit of meat that's cooked, hard-boiled eggs, and nuts and seeds.
Do you have, you know, I noticed that you do a lot of work with university classes. Why don't you tell me about that?
Yes, it's great for us and also students who are able to educate, and they get extra credit for listening to me speak, and they have to write a paper. So it helps
Have to listen to you speak.
Yes. So I try to entertain them to make it worthwhile.
Do they stick around, take an interest, and come out and volunteer?
Sometimes they do.
Yeah?
Yes.
What about College of the Canyons? I've heard that College of the Canyons has a class, too, that may come out to your place.
Yeah, sometimes biology or anthropology classes come out, and they come for a tour, or they'll do observations for the class.
Have there been some You mentioned observations. Have there been some discoveries at your place that that you can tell us about?
Oh, many. That's the part that's most thrilling for me.
Tell me.
Sure. In 1983, we discovered a new subgenus of gibbon. And people were wondering, like, why Alan was able to discover this, why didn't we? It's just that we happen to have this really rare gibbon there. And when scientists would obtain blood, from what they thought was the same species from a zoo during a routine exam, it turned out it was the wrong species.
Really? So when this came to you, it had been misidentified?
No, it was identified as the correct species, and I confirmed it. But in all the other zoos in the world, it wasn't the ones that they had. It was the wrong species that looks similar. And that is one of my specialties, is species identification. So when we looked at the blood and I sent it to a lab, the fellow said, "You made a mistake. This is not what their blood looks like. You got to send it again." I said, "I know what I did." He goes, "You got to send it again." And so it was published in 2 journals. So, and behaviorally, we're always coming up with interesting facts. And what I try to write about is everything that would do to help these animals do better in captivity, nothing to hurt them. So, and then we try not to ever stress our animals out. And if they ever got stressed, I try to write about what causes that and how to remedy it.
What are there significant breakthroughs you want to tell me about?
Let me see. I guess it's ongoing about familiarity. I just got a paper accepted for publication in the International Journal of Primatology. And a lot of zoo officials who are very knowledgeable always thought that if you had 2 orphan gibbons, let's say, in the country of origin, that eventually they would never breed because they'll think they're brother and sister. So I did a large study for 10 years to prove that that's not true. So this way, it would be good for those particular individuals to release back into the wild if they were confiscated from the general public in the country of origin.
How do you develop a specialty in species identification that other people don't have?
Spending too many years and hours in museums studying the animals there. Collections. Yes. And
hands-on doing.
Yes, and I don't know if you've read about it too with what happened with American Indians, items that they've donated, that there's a lot of chemicals that are put on them that are really harmful. So I get dressed up. I look like I'm ready for surgery or something when I'm in there, and everybody kind of thinks it's humorous, but I think it's the healthiest thing to be doing when you're touching a lot of different chemicals.
Well, tell me about Alan Mootnick. I mean, where'd you start out, and how did you get from there to here?
I grew up with Tarzan on television, and I wanted to be his son. I knew I couldn't be Tarzan, I was too young. So where I grew up to, we had an area that was kind of rural in the back, and so I played in my forest every day after school, and always wanted to be Tarzan's son. So when I went to the zoo when I was like 9 years of age, and I heard a gibbon singing and got to watch them, fell in love with them, and I knew I wanted to take care of them at that time, and asked my parents if I could have a zoo so I could have gibbons. And I was told there's nothing in this world you can't do, but you're going to have to get a job. And I wasn't allowed, and she said he couldn't hurt anybody while doing it. So no stepping under the people's feet. So started working at 9 years of age and building enclosures, and started with rabbits, pigeons, and a dog.
What'd you do after you got out of school? I mean, did you go to work for a zoo or what?
No, I studied dental technology.
Really?
And realized that wasn't my field. I could not be in an office working on many projects. I like being outdoors. And so decided that wasn't for me. It was great to be able to know dental anatomy, but doesn't really help with what I wanted to do.
At least we can be pretty sure you don't have any gibbons with bad teeth, huh?
Right, yes.
Do you have to occasionally bring in some kind of medical specialists or something? Do the gibbons have medical problems occasionally?
Yes. I have learned over the years, too, how to work on helping them. And we do have a veterinarian named Howard Martin who's very kind and helps us. He's also on our board of directors.
Tell me about the board. I mean, who is it and who's officially in charge of the Gibbon Conservation Center?
I guess I'm in charge. And we have a board of directors from various areas in charge of museums or lawyers and people like that. And looking for people who could help generate revenue to help it go further.
I was going to say, this is what you do full-time, right?
This is what I do full-time as a volunteer. I do not get paid. And
so it's a nonprofit.
Yes, and I only work 100 hours a week.
Right. Where do people get more information?
Local newspapers, contacting our website at
which is
www.gibbonscenter.org.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to ask you, we're about out of time, but I'm going to ask you a really stupid question. What is the difference between a monkey and an ape?
It's a great question. It's a very important question. A simple one is an ape does not have a tail. So that's a good one. An ape's brain is much larger than a monkey's brain of the same weight. Their dentition, which is harder to see, the cusp and grooves look different. The placement of the scapula, let's say on a monkey, would be more like a dog here, would be on their back. And apes have longer arms than their legs. Gibbons' arms happen to be 1.5 times longer than their legs.
And these gibbons that you have seem to be pretty good swingers.
They're the world's greatest acrobat.
Yeah?
Yes.
Swinging from high trees, huh?
In the wild, they can get going 35 miles an hour, taking leaps of 50 feet at a time.
Really? Outrun most predators?
Up above, yes. On the ground, not so fast. But they do walk bipedally, so if they were in a hurry running, they'd always be on 2 feet. And if they got tired, they'd just have to stop. They would never be quadrupedal.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
And thank you for joining us. If you missed any portion of this program, you can read a transcript in the Sunday Signal. Be sure to check back here, SCV TV Channel 20, Wednesday, 9:30 p.m., Sunday, 8:30 a.m., for another Newsmaker of the Week.